Good morning, Masters. Today we are going to start 5th chapter. What about abortion? Abortion and spirit babies. Whenever I lecture on spirit babies, someone will inevitably ask, how do spirit babies feel about abortion? This is not an easy question to answer because spirit babies all respond individually to the termination of the birth cycle. Some feel angry, lost, and abandoned, while others show a great compassion and understanding for the circumstances and health of the mother. In order to understand a spirit baby's attitude toward abortion, it is important to understand a bit about the energy dynamics of their world. Every non physical dimension has a set of energies that defines the activities of its inhabitants. In the world of the dead, for example, the defining energies are vision, responsibility, and release. The purpose of this realm is to allow a spirit to see the effect of its earthly actions and to take responsibility for them. Once this process is completed, the spirit releases the identity of its previous life and is free to leave the realm of the dead and pursue its next incarnation. The defining forces in the world of spirit babies are nurturing and creation. A spirit entering this realm finds a world much like a mother's womb. This supportive environment constantly nurtures the spirit, helping it create and grow into its new identity. No matter what befalls a spirit baby on its journey to incarnation, whether it is problems with the conception contract, miscarriage, or abortion, it is always part of an environment that preserves and supports its individual destiny. The other important aspect of the spirit baby world is the energy of creation. It is this creative energy that allows the spirit baby a great freedom to explore the possibilities life has to offer. When I look at a spirit baby, I'm often treated to a succession of constantly changing images representing the different roles the spirit baby will have to play in its future life. By creating and exploring these images, the spirit baby gets to know its strengths, limitations, and fears. The purpose of this creative force is to help the spirit baby become a successful human being. The nature of the physical world is one that constantly challenges us to create the life we want. Sometimes we succeed, sometimes we fail, and have to start over again. Learning to create in such a world is an important survival skill. When an unborn spirit experiences abortion, it learns one of the basic lessons of creation. We do not always get what we want. To be successful, we must constantly reinvest our creative energies regardless of the disappointments and setbacks that occur. After an abortion, the unborn spirit does not die, nor does it lose the ability to create. The womb like energy of the spirit baby world nurtures and invigorates the returning spirit, placing it once again in a position to accept human life. Do you still want me? I do not mean to imply that abortion is an easy process for the spirit baby. Abortion means the terms of the conception contract have not been fulfilled. The conception contract is essentially a promise. The mother and father promise to create a body that will help the spirit baby fulfill its destiny. When this agreement is not kept, the spirit baby must face the fact that the promise has been broken. Like children, spirit babies react to their parents' broken promises in many different ways. Some react with empathy and show a great understanding of the mental, physical, and emotional circumstances that make abortion necessary. Some feel sad and become silent and withdrawn. Others react with anger, demanding an explanation. Whatever the reaction, I have noticed that spirit babies do not morally judge or condemn their prospective mother or parents for choosing abortion. As the following stories illustrate, spirit babies view abortion as a personal matter. Any issues arising from it must be worked out between themselves and their prospective parents. In the end, most only have one question: do you still want me? In my experience, one of the most difficult aspects of abortion is that the mother must face the issue alone. Even in situations where the father is present and supportive, the nature of the conception contract places the woman in the decision making position. Her body and spirit must carry the spirit baby from conception to birth. She is the one who will be asked to invest the most psychically and physically. Spirit babies do return to their mothers after an abortion. This is a phenomenon I have observed countless times in my practice. What draws them back is the mother's intention. Is abortion her way of saying no to motherhood? Or simply saying not now? Spirit babies are very adept at sensing whether they are really wanted. If a woman's commitment to motherhood is strong and she expresses a loving desire to continue the relationship, most spirit babies will gladly return. Reunited again. Johnny was happily married and expecting her first child. She and her husband had recently become interested in the concept of reincarnation, and they were intrigued by the idea that they may have known their child in a previous life. Johnny especially was curious. All my friends who have babies tell me it's like a new beginning, like a new chapter in your life. I feel like something is being completed, as if I'm finishing something I began long ago. Does this mean I have some kind of past life connection with my baby? Johnny's aura was aglow with life. It had a warm gold and orange color, indicating a strong, healthy pregnancy. Floating in this glow of orange and gold was the image of a little boy contentedly sucking his thumb. When I asked if he had known Johnny before, he removed his thumb from his mouth, smiled, and folded his hands palm to palm, as if in a prayer. I didn't understand what his action meant, so I asked my question again. I knew her when she was 19, he said in a small voice. When I repeated his words, Johnny began to cry gently. I had an abortion when I was 19. I was pregnant and my boyfriend deserted me. I felt like I had no choice. I always wanted to be a mom, so the decision was very hard for me. Afterward, I prayed every day for forgiveness and the chance to give the spirit life again. Is this the same being? Asked Johnny. In response to Johnny's question, the little boy reached behind his back and pulled out a Raggedy Ann doll. He then returned his thumb to his mouth as if to say, "No more questions." The little boy's answer was more than enough for Johnny. "It's him, I know it's him," she said as I described the doll. After the abortion, I was so depressed that I cried myself to sleep almost every night. One of my only comforts was my old Raggedy Ann doll. Whenever I held her, I felt everything was going to be okay. Do you think that's my baby's message? Is everything okay between us now? Before I could answer, the image of the little boy floated over to Johnny and nestled into her heart chakra. "Never mind," Johnny said as she touched her hand to the center of her chest. "I know we are complete. I feel it in my heart." Johnny's spirit baby returned to her after the abortion. Johnny's prayers and her fervent desire for another chance made him feel wanted. His touching gesture of nestling in her heart was an act of healing, trust, and forgiveness. Whatever issues he had with the abortion were in the past. The contented, happy spirit baby that I encountered knew he was loved and was eager to give love in return. Abortion is not an easy process for spirit babies. When the terms of the conception contract are not fulfilled, the spirit baby is at a crossroads on its journey to human life. Is the time frame of the conception contract simply being changed, or is the contract itself being dissolved? If there is not a clear indication from the woman or couple about the future of the contract, some spirit babies can begin to feel lost and confused. This lost and confused energy can often negatively impact a woman's healing process after an abortion. As this next story illustrates, a woman and her spirit baby can face this confusion and come to a healing balance. Physical and emotional healing. Naomi was beginning to get her life back on track. After years of substance abuse, she had joined a 12-step program and was actually enjoying being drug free. Her physical health, however, was the problem. I had an abortion 3 months ago and my uterus hasn't quite healed. Besides my doctor, I have consulted an herbalist and an acupuncturist, but I'm still not getting any results. I have been learning that everything happens for a reason. Can you help me understand what is going on here? I began by checking the viability of Naomi's healing channels. These channels run parallel to the spine. When the body is healing successfully after a trauma or illness, these channels appear as bright, vibrant lines of color extending from the top of the head to the base of the spine. If the body's healing is being impeded on an energetic level, sections of these channels will appear distorted, broken, or dark. These are the sections I focus on clairvoyantly when I want to identify what is blocking the healing process. The energy in Naomi's channels flowed straight and smooth until it reached the area near the base of her spine. There it distorted into a cloud of grey mist. As I looked into the mist, I began to discern the image of a half completed stone house with no roof. A girl was seated on a pile of stones in front of the house. Are you the spirit baby who wanted to live in this house? I asked telepathically. The spirit baby nodded. I told her I was here to help Naomi heal after the abortion. Does Naomi still want me? I can't decide. I asked whether the spirit baby had known Naomi before. She was my mother once. She was the best. But does she want me now? I can't tell. I can't decide. As the spirit finished speaking, the image of the girl stood up and began to walk slowly around and around the pile of stones. When I opened my eyes to address Naomi, she had her hand over her uterus. Whatever you are doing sure has stirred things up down there. Can you tell me what's wrong? Asked Naomi. I explained to Naomi that after an abortion, the spirit baby usually releases its connection to the woman's energy system. In her case, however, the spirit was still attached. The spirit baby's confusion had created an energy blockage near her uterus, preventing her energy system from fully supporting her efforts to heal. I then repeated the spirit baby's words and asked Naomi if she thought children were part of her future. That's one of the questions I had for you, said Naomi. I would like to say yes, but I still don't trust myself. I have to take things one day at a time. I think you will decide to have children, I told her. When I saw the spirit baby, she was sitting in front of a half completed house. If the conception contract between you had been dissolved, the house would have appeared decimated, deserted. The half built appearance of the house is a positive sign. The abortion just delayed the completion of the conception contract. I gave Naomi several meditations to help her heal and rebalance her body, mind, and spirit. When I finished, she asked if there was something she could do to help the spirit baby and gain perspective on the motherhood issue. As I considered her questions, the image of the girl and the half built home appeared again. Now, however, the girl was picking up stones from the pile and placing them on the unfinished walls. Taking my cue from the spirit baby, I asked Naomi to take a few minutes each day and visualize that she and the young girl were building the house together. You do not have to finish the whole project in one day. I told her, just imagine that you and the girl are working together, building up the walls and roof a few stones at a time. After 2 weeks, Naomi called a report that her uterus had healed. When I inquired how she was doing with the house building visualization, Naomi laughed. Last night, when I was imagining picking up a stone, the little girl ran up and hugged me. I know I didn't imagine that. About 3 years later, I learned that Naomi was married and expecting her first child, a girl. Naomi's and Joanne's spirit babies chose to remain with the prospective parents. Some spirit babies, however, do not have that option. If after an abortion a prospective mother chooses not to have children, the spirit baby must find another way to fulfill its destiny. In this next story, a spirit baby relies on past life memories to find its way to a new home. Will you be my mommy? Elizabeth was at a crossroads in her career. She had several lucrative job offers and wanted my clairvoyant perspective on which one she should take. When I looked in her aura, however, the most prominent image was the green oval of a spirit baby floating above her left shoulder. The spirit baby had attached itself to Elizabeth's sixth chakra, just below the center of the forehead, with a cord of iridescent purple light. The iridescent quality of the light immediately caught my attention. Spirit babies use this color when they are trying to make their presence known to a prospective parent. When I told Elizabeth a potential child was trying to communicate with her, she closed her eyes and said nothing. She only nodded when I asked if she wanted me to find out more information about the spirit. As I refocused my attention on the spirit baby, a stream of images began to appear. A woman carrying a basket walks up to the back door of a farmhouse just before dawn. She places the basket in front of the door and hurries away. Moments later, an older woman opens the door. Reaching down, she lifts a child out of the basket and hugs it to her breast. After the images ended, the green oval of the spirit baby reappeared. A whispery voice, neither male nor female, began to speak. She took me in. She loved me. Will she love me again? How did you come to Elizabeth this time? I asked telepathically. Her sister no longer wants children, so I came here. The spirit would say nothing more, so I turned my attention back to Elizabeth. I described the scenario I had just witnessed. I told her the spirit had once come to her as a foundling whom she loved and cherished. The spirit had been left on her doorstep, again in this lifetime when her sister decided not to have children. Elizabeth was a bit overwhelmed by this information but felt it all made sense. I helped my sister through an abortion a few months ago. It was a life changing event for her. She decided not to have kids. My husband and I had not planned to have children, but ever since the abortion, all we have talked about is having kids. I explained that the energy cord the spirit baby had to her sixth chakra would make it hard to think about anything else. Spirits use this chakra when they are trying to influence the thought process of their prospective parents. This spirit baby wants to make a conception contract with you and your husband, I continued. The old contract with your sister has been dissolved. The spirit is drawn to you karmically because you represent a loving, nurturing home. But the next choice is really yours. If my husband and I decide not to have kids, will the spirit have another place to go? I refocused my attention on the spirit baby and asked the question. When I told Elizabeth the spirit baby's reply, we both laughed. I won't need another place, said the spirit baby. The spirit baby's confidence proved well founded. Elizabeth was pregnant within a year. As I noted earlier in this chapter, spirit babies are most concerned with the intent behind an abortion. Do you still want me? Is the question foremost in their minds. If the answer to this question is no, most spirit babies show a great resilience and creativity. When Elizabeth's sister dissolved the conception contract, her spirit baby did not mourn the loss. Searching past life memories, the spirit baby found Elizabeth a special healing person who was willing to create a new contract. This ability to adapt and change is one of the defining characteristics of most spirit babies. They do not mourn the past but actually seek out those with whom they can create a loving, secure future. In this instance, it was another family member, but often it is someone from the spirit baby's past who is not related to their current situation. There are those spirit babies, however, who have decidedly negative reaction to abortion. They feel abortion has deprived them of the means to create the life they want. These spirit babies often harbor an intense anger that keeps them from rejoining their prospective families for years. However, even the most recalcitrant spirit babies can change. especially when it hears the healing voice of its mother's heart. The angriest spirit baby. Ruth and her husband were thinking about an addition to their family. We already have two children, she explained after she sat down for her reading. But I feel like our family is incomplete, like someone's missing. My girlfriend told me you could see spirits of unborn children. Is there one waiting to join our family? Looking into Ruth's aura, I could discern the energy forms of her husband and two daughters. There was, however, no trace of a spirit baby. I reported this fact and suggested that if she wished to have a child, we could call a spirit baby to her. I had barely finished my suggestion when I felt a light slap to the side of my head. As this kind of phenomenon usually indicates a new spirit has entered the room, I focused clairvoyantly to see what had appeared. There was the angriest spirit baby I had ever seen. Inside of a dark blue oval, the figure of a small boy was outlined in red. His fists were clenched and he looked as if he were holding his breath, much like a child having a tantrum. When I asked him what was wrong, he shook his fist at me, then sputtered. She made me wait. I should have been first. You should have been Ruth's first child? I asked. Yes, I should have been first, the spirit repeated forcefully. How did she make you wait? She had an abortion. I should have been first. Why did you want to be first so much? Because everyone likes the first child the best, replied the spirit with an air of how stupid can you be? Why didn't you come when Ruth was ready to have children? She made me wait, so I made her wait, the spirit said indignantly. Then the dark blue oval became opaque. Any further questions were met with stony silence. Intuitively, I felt a real loneliness and the desire to be loved beneath the spirit baby's anger. Specifically, I knew he wanted to be loved by Ruth. A spirit baby can decide to abandon a conception contract if it wishes. Despite his rage, he had not abandoned the conception contract with Ruth. If he could get over his rage, I intuitively knew he would be happy with Ruth and her family. When I told Ruth the spirit baby story, it brought tears to her eyes. It's sad to think he has been alone for so long. It's been nearly 15 years since I had the abortion. Why didn't he come back when I had my first child? Spirit babies, like children, have different temperaments, I explained. Some are easygoing, while others are very reactive and emotional when they don't get what they want. The spirit baby was very reactive. Like a child having a tantrum, he had become so consumed by his own rage that he couldn't respond to anything else. Ironically, his anger deprived him of what he wanted most, to be your first child. Why do you think being first is so important to him? His experience in other lifetimes has taught him that the first child is the most loved and wanted. It's a good example of how karma can create self imposed limits. For this spirit baby, being first is the only option. It is the only way he knows to get the love and affection he needs. Ruth took a long breath. From the moment you began to speak about this spirit, I knew he was the missing member of our family. Is there any way we can help him? She asked. You know, I can apologize for any hurt or pain he suffered, but I can't apologize for the abortion. At the time, I had major health problems. Pregnancy was too big a risk to take. I told Ruth there was no need to apologize for the past. While acknowledging the spirit baby's feelings will help the healing process, what is most important now is to show him he is loved and wanted. You cannot change his past, but you can offer him the love and nurturing he needs in the future. Ruth was eager to begin the process of connecting with her spirit baby, so I asked her to take a moment and focus on the fourth chakra in the center of her chest. After she centered herself with a few breaths, I guided her through a meditative visualization. Imagine you are walking through the woods looking for your child. When you find him, tell him you are glad he did not go away. Let the healing voice of your heart speak to him and invite him to join your family. As I guided Ruth through the visualization, I watched the spirit baby's reaction. After a few minutes, the blue shell around the spirit baby began to melt away, drop by drop, like ice melting on a warm winter's day. When the shell had completely dissolved, an image of Ruth soothing a crying child appeared. The child seemed to cry for a long time before he finally fell asleep in her lap. I opened my eyes to check on Ruth. She was dabbing away tears with her handkerchief. When I asked her about the visualization, her only comment was, I think everything will be all right now. Ruth was right. 1 year later, she gave birth to a boy. The family was complete. The anger of Ruth's spirit baby was very strong, but his desire to be loved and accepted by her was even stronger. When I guided Ruth through the visualization, the natural healing energy of that chakra created a space where the spirit baby could drop his anger and release the tears of loneliness. He was finally able to leave the past behind and embrace the love and nurturing available to him. A spirit baby's reaction of anger to an abortion can sometimes spill over into their next incarnation. Even when a spirit baby and mother fulfill the conception contract at a later date, there can still be a residual anger from the abortion. Again, spirit babies have very individual responses to any changes made in the conception contract. Occasionally, I have encountered mothers with young children who are still very angry over an earlier abortion. With these particularly angry individuals, when the issue was not dealt with sufficiently in the spirit baby realm, it manifests in our world to be dealt with. Holding on to anger. I received a phone call from a woman on the East Coast named Nora who wanted to set up an appointment by phone. Her therapist had referred her to me because she was trying to work on some problems she was having with her 5-year-old daughter. On the day of her appointment, she only had one question. Tell me everything you can about my daughter Charlotte. I focused clairvoyantly on Nora, her connection with her daughter, and then on Charlotte. Just as spirit babies are energetically connected to their prospective parents, children also are connected to their parents, usually through energy cords. Charlotte's aura was more ragged than the average 5-year-old's and had jagged splotches of an intense red color, which often indicates a very angry person. When I focused on these splotches of red, I began to see a series of images that kept replaying. Charlotte was very happily laughing and skipping toward a house with an open front door, but just as she would get to the porch of the house, the door would slam shut in her face. When this happened, Charlotte would get very angry and begin to cry. Suddenly, the image would change, and Charlotte would be inside of a house, and her mother would be on the porch. In this image, Charlotte would angrily slam the door when she saw her mother approaching. I was surprised to see that the images seemed to be taking place in what looked like a reproduction of the spirit baby realm. Charlotte's anger reminded me of spirit babies who were angry at their prospective parents after an abortion. I relayed everything I had seen to Nora. I was surprised when she said in a raised voice, I knew it. I had an abortion about 10 years ago, and when Charlotte's father and I got pregnant, it felt exactly the same as when I had been pregnant before with someone else. But I don't mean that I just knew I was pregnant. It felt like it was the same baby who had come back. I always thought it was, but I never told anyone I thought that. You've also described the exact problem I'm having with Charlotte. One moment she's the happiest, most affectionate child in the world, and the next minute she is so angry that it seems like she hates me. My therapist and I have tried many different things, but none of them has worked. That's why she referred me to you. She wanted me to get a spiritual perspective on the situation. Nora went on to say that she didn't understand why Charlotte would still be mad about the abortion, since she had ended up coming back to her. I could tell that Nora loved her daughter tremendously but felt impatient with Charlotte's anger and had a she needs to get over it attitude about the situation. However, for Charlotte, the feelings of being shut out of Nora's life because of the abortion were very real and still lingered, even though she was not consciously aware of them. As I continued to look at the situation clairvoyantly, I found that Nora had a cord with her daughter that came from her third chakra. This is a very common energetic connection between parents and children. This type of cord says, I'm responsible for your safety, so I will give you rules and boundaries to live by. However, what Charlotte really needed in order to get over her anger was a sense of acknowledgement and acceptance. I told Nora that the best way to create a more harmonious relationship with her daughter was to connect with her energetically through a cord from her fourth or heart chakra. This connection would send a constant energy of acceptance and acknowledgement to Charlotte. I showed Nora how to make that connection and gave her a meditation to do every day to work on the situation. About 6 months later, Nora called to let me know that there had been a significant improvement with Charlotte and that her daughter's intense anger was pretty much gone now. Most spirit babies do not react to an abortion with anger, and even fewer will carry it into their next incarnation. Once a conception contract is renegotiated, spirit babies are generally happy to wait for the right time to return to their prospective parents. Charlotte showed no conscious awareness of the abortion. For almost all spirit babies, the experiences of the pre and post conception world are forgotten when they become children. While I have seen cases where I believe abortion was a factor affecting the child's behavior, these children, like Charlotte, had no memory of the experience. Most children do not consciously remember their experiences in the spirit baby world. The very nature of this world does not promote creating memories. The spirit baby world is a transitional space between lifetimes on the earth plane. Unlike past life experiences, which are anchored in our memories by references to specific people, places, or time periods, experiences in the spirit baby world lack such well defined reference points. In a world where there is no linear time and the landscape constantly changes with a spirit baby's every thought and emotion, anything that does not promote life is discarded. In the beginning of this chapter, I noted that whether or not a spirit baby returns after an abortion depends on the prospective mother's intention. Another factor that determines whether a spirit baby stays or goes is karma, the spirit baby's individual destiny. Some spirit babies can fulfill their destiny with any number of prospective parents. If one decides not to have children, they can always find another who will love and cherish them. There are spirit babies, however, whose destiny can only be fulfilled by being the child of one particular person or couple. For these spirit babies, even a prospective mother's intention not to have children after an abortion does not alter their karmic path. Okay, Masters, we'll stop here. Thank you very much.